All right, guys. So the lead story on the podcast today, I've kicked around the idea for quite a while of a site called Granddaddy's Gun Club. And last fall, I thought, does anybody own Granddaddy'sGun.com? It just seems like somebody would have to own that. So I looked it up, and nobody did. So I bought it. And then I thought to myself, do you spell Granddaddy or Granddaddy? With Granddaddy or Grandddy? Well, in the Aaron Lewis song that kind of inspired my view of this thing, there's the 2D, but I looked it up and both are considered technically correct. One more of European origin. They say that more in like the UK. They'll say granddaddy versus granddaddy. So I've bought them both and redirected one to the other, and we now have, if you go to either one of those domains, a website set up for the Granddaddy's Gun Club. And right now it's in pre-beta. But this is the concept of the gun club is a total thing. It's a national movement. Certainly, people outside the United States are free to do whatever they can with it based on their laws in their country. But it is designed to protect and preserve the right to keep and bear arms, which is stated in the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. But I don't care whether it's in there or not, as far as whether or not I believe the right exists. The right of self-defense and self-determination is an inalienable human right. And I think we should be grateful that our government is restricted by that Second Amendment from interfering with it, but we should see it as an innate human right, not just something that's given to you by the Second Amendment, rather that you have that's protected by the Second Amendment. And it is a Second Amendment style movement, but it's much deeper than that. It is to pass along the tradition of gun ownership from one generation to the next. And it's absolutely open to anybody. Since it's Granddaddy's, it's not a men's only club. Granddaddy symbolizes the older generation taking care of the younger generation. Women are welcome to join. Anybody is welcome to join. But the concept is that there will be guns that will be set aside that have already come down from previous generations or are set aside to go to previous generations at some point. A son, a daughter, a grandson, etc., and a nephew, a niece. I mean, again, this is multi-generational. And those guns, you know that one day that gun is going to go down to a younger member of your family, and it's going to stay in the family. And you're going to teach that young person as they grow into an adult, as a responsible American gun owner, to do the same. And because we have guns, in this country that are 200 years old and still work, and the guns they're building today, and the guns they've been building for 100 years, there's no reason they can't be here 500 years from now, as long as no one tries to take them from us. And I want to make damn sure that we have more and more people that feel this way. Yeah, from my cold dead hands. This gun will leave my hands when I hand it to an heir or when you pry it away from me with my blood. That's what this is about. But I also thought, what a great way to do this would be if we created a really social club that, yes, can be empowered by online, but really its greatest power is offline. This came to me one night up in Elijah Spring Farm in West Virginia when I was talking to my good friend and business partner, Kevin Keegan, and we kind of came up with this together. And here's the idea. Individuals set up their own groups. You decide who's in your chapter of the national club. There's no cost to join, by the way. And the site is free, by the way. There's no cost to join the site either. We put some monetization things in there later, but right now it's just a service to America. So you join, you get other people to join, you set up your groups, and the site's already set up to where you can create groups, and each of your groups can have forums. Those groups can be public or completely private by invitation only. It's up to you. That's all done. It's like artwork and stuff that needs to be done to the site right now. The functionality's there thanks to something called Buddy Press, and it's ready to go, and you can register for it and sign up for it and start using it right away. And then those groups will set times that they're going to do a shoot, an overnight camp out and shoot. And we'll come up with like formal guidelines for our suggested way to do this, but you basically run your own chapter. But the concept would basically be, since there's probably a campfire and beer and things like that, and guns and alcohol do not mix, one member of the club agrees to serve for that episode as a sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms receives all the guns when you get there, and those guns are made safe the same way they are at a gun show, where you turn your gun and you're going to sell at a gun show into a police officer, and they make sure it's empty, they make sure it's clear, and they band it with a zip tie on the trigger or in some way where the gun cannot possibly be fired without removing that tie. That makes the gun safe before any of the social activities begin. We then set up a fire, tents, etc. You sit around the fire that night and tell stories about the guns, stories about hunting, stories about fishing, stories about everything. Stories about, your time in service, whatever it is that's important to you and your members. You share those stories around the campfire, and you include the guns in the conversation. It doesn't have to be 100% gun-centric. Everybody has a good time. Fire dies down. Everybody goes to sleep in their tents or RVs or whatever it is you're camping in. The next day, everybody gets up, has breakfast. Guns are taken to a place, whether it's right out the back door or down the road to a range where it's safe to shoot. And there's a group shoot. People are able to let each other shoot. And that's the basic event. And I think it'd be a hell of a fun time for a lot of people. Here's where it gets really interesting. The concept, though, is that someday those weapons get turned down to the next generation. And the one big commitment, among some others, that a club member makes is that handing off will be done at a event, at one of these events, so that the child hopefully is coming to some of these things and knows that one day that gun will be theirs. And whenever you decide, or whoever it is decides that it's the point where it's time, that gun will be given kind of ceremoniously at that point to that kid or that young adult, or maybe even someone that's quite a bit older. I mean, I can see very well there might be people that would hold on to that special gun until their 70s and decide, now it's time. I don't want to die and then have my son inherit this. I want to put it in his hands myself. So that will take place. And you got to think about what this means. This means that if you had a gun that was your grandfather's and you gave that to your grandson, that moment right there, surrounded by your friends, people that you care about, 6 generations. 6. Just in that one time. Do it again, it's 9. Guys, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with hearing about you don't need this kind of gun to shoot a deer. I'm fed up with all of it. I'm completely fed up, and this is what I'm doing about it. From my cold dead hands. And this is what I honestly think. I think if we can get enough people to do this, more people will feel that way. The Second Amendment is only as valid as our willingness to defend it. And that's what this is about. Honor, tradition, family, and an understanding that shall not does not mean anything other than shall not. There is no other legal contract in America today that any court would look at and go, well, we're not really sure what that means. Shall not is one of the most clear pieces of legal language that can be used in a contract, which is what the Constitution of the United States of America is. And shall not shall mean shall not. You have gone far enough, folks on the other side. You will go no further. And this club will stand as a way to make sure that we reinstill that value in America, we reinstill it in our children, and we reinstill it for generations upon generations yet to come. Because I want people to understand when people start talking about common sense gun control, what they're talking about is taking away your rights to your property. And if that property belonged to a grandfather or a great uncle or a father, was handed down from one generation to the next, I think there will be a lot more people that will feel like I do from my cold dead hands. I invite you to join me as a new member of the Granddaddy's Gun Club. And I also, right now, like I said, it's pretty much a beta site. So I have a special hidden group on there right now that I'll invite you to if you join the site and then email me, jack@thesurvivalpodcast.com, and say, tell me your username and say you want to be part of it. I'm looking for people who can do graphics. I'm looking for people that understand WordPress, that can understand BuddyPress, that can help us make the site look good and give me some assistance in getting it off the ground a little bit higher than it already is. But check it out, granddaddysgun.com, and I hope you become a member as soon as possible.